Turn up the volume, turn up the flavour. Wings, beers and sporting glory. Only at Winghouse.
Smart technology, smart design, smart value. Get street smart with the Tiggo 4 Pro at Cherry Shell Harbour.
Welcome to Saturday League Kickoff. Turn up the volume, turn up the flavour. Wings, beers and sporting glory. Only at Winghouse. Welcome to Saturday League Kickoff.
Welcome, all you rabid rugby league fans on this Saturday morning. This is Saturday League Kickoff. Myself, Scotty Sattler, and also Andrew Webster. And I've got to say, what a first 5 weeks we've had of rugby league. We are so fortunate to, over the last few weeks, hosting this show that we've had such great Thursday and Friday night games. And before we talk about that, Webby, also welcome to our viewers live on Fox League and also all our listeners through the SEN network and listening via the SEN app. Andrew Webster, as I said, the NRL bosses would be absolutely salivating at the moment.
They are. Salivating NRL bosses, rabid rugby league fans. We're like dogs. We're like Cujo. I tell you, you're right though. We've been blessed with Saturday League Kickoff because the Friday night games have been absolute rippers so far this year. It's and last night was no different. The Cows, 4 losses in a row. The Penrith Panthers, 4 losses in a row. And
uncharted waters.
Uncharted waters.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the last time they lost 4 in a row was 2019, and now we've just seen South Sydney pull one out of the fire against the Roosters last night. So it was a pretty special night of footy.
It's interesting, Ivan Cleary. He hasn't been here for a long time. Where does he go now as a coach? Does he delve back into the history of his coaching, where he's been in this situation before, and what he had to do to get his team out of it? It's the conundrums of a coach.
It is. Well, it's probably his biggest test since they've gone on their run of grand finals and premierships, really, isn't it? So it was. You know what? It's going to happen, Sats. At some point, they were going to have to come back to the field, and that said, though, there was it doesn't matter how much experience you have in your team. You're not going to win football matches if you turn over as much ball as what Penrith have been doing, and I'm sure that'll be the focus for Ivan this week. If I was any judge of rugby league.
Well, the game hasn't changed, is it? If you
hold on to the pill.
Don't hold on to the pill and you make less missed tackles, a lot of time you win the game.
It's not rocket surgery.
Exactly. Hey, coming up on the show, Friday night review of both those games last night. Also, we'll dive into, the big topic throughout the week. There's been a number of big topics, whether it's the possible defection to Samoa from Payne Haas and Tino Fa'asuamaleaui. There's the Allianz Stadium, Souths and Roosters. But I think the head-high contact crackdown from the NRL has probably got most of the rugby league listeners, the viewers on Fox League and also the fans probably talking the most around where the NRL goes with this. Also, Thursday night's finish between the Raiders and the Sharkies is one of the great finishes we've seen in many, many years. And also, get all your text messages as well. 0457 736 736 is the number if you want to text in. If you want to give us a call, also, this is what's so great about Saturday League Kickoff, the interaction between the fans live on Fox League and SEN. You can give us a call, 1300 01 1170. Whether you're a Cowboys fan, Panthers fan, Bunnies fan with that finish last night, the Roosters, Raiders fans. We've got a lot out there. Snackers from Raiders always sending the texts in as well. How are you feeling about your team so far after 5 rounds? But before we do that, let's get into our Saturday Spotlight.
The Spotlight.
Well, firstly, do you love that?
That's very
How
ominous.
good was that? Yeah. It's very dark, wasn't it?
It's scary.
It's a little bit like Webby investigates.
I feel like I'm being investigated.
Do you know what? My Saturday Spotlight, Webby, if you don't mind me kicking off,
You
is
go.
the highs
Your
and
show.
lows of rugby league. And without saying anything further, this is what it's all about.
Last tackle, short of the halfway line. Where's Fogarty? He's on the left-hand side. Does he run it again? Yes, he does. Long ball to Hudson Young. Hudson Young into the backfield. Got away from one. Stands in the tackle. Now he goes again. Still the last. Got to offload. Gave to Strange. Got to release. Gave now. This is Savage. He's got to release it. He's got players on the outside. Little kick through. Comes now. Timokor bounces up for Weeks. Flicked it out the back. Here it comes Sisangi. Sisangi gets the ball to set piece. It's a miracle. It's a miracle in the capital.
That was Jimmy Smith on SEN League with Noddy Cavoli and Timmy Manor, the Lion of Lebanon.
He is a lion. There was some try, wasn't it? Some finish. The only thing that surpassed it was Ricky's celebrations. The only thing that surpassed Ricky's celebrations was his press conference.
Exactly, yeah.
When he bagged the hell out of the refs without bagging the refs.
Yeah.
It was masterful from
It's
from
like a pat on the back to Todd Smith.
No, I really think he's a good referee.
So they had
Ricky had his passive-aggressive best. I love it.
They had every reason to lose that, the Raiders, but like Ricky Stewart teams do, they find a way somehow. They drag you into the trenches and they make you roll your sleeves up. Seb Chris, he was the try scorer. Now, he's the left centre, bobbed up on the right-hand side. And then, like you said, the 80 minutes of the roller coaster of emotions that Ricky Stewart gives us through rugby league, I've got to say, it's refreshing. The way that he jumped around and celebrated with his staff and his players, amazing.
I think I've said it on this show before. Ricky gets a bit of he polarises opinion. There's plenty of people outside of Canberra that aren't Ricky Stewart fans. I love him. His passion and the way that he approaches the game. It's gonna rub a lot of people up the wrong way. But I thought he was. It was a classic Ricky quote afterwards. I don't coach my team to be ill-disciplined. Not many do. But it was a great effort and a great celebration from Stick.
Yeah, I love him. I love everything about Ricky Stewart. Love his passion. Loved it as a player. And when he first went into coaching at the Roosters, great success straight away. I love what he's doing down at Canberra as well. And then you fast forward 24 hours and we've got the Panthers versus the Cowboys, which I was fortunate enough to call for SEN League with Joel Kane and Luke Prittis. It was an amazing game, an amazing finish. And then after that, just when we think we hadn't had enough, we've got the Roosters up against Souths, and I suppose that's where your Saturday spotlight comes from.
Look, it's an obvious one, but if any player has a sense of a true sense of occasion, it's got to be Trelmott, Latrell. I know again he's a polarising figure, but you can't deny when he's on, he is on. I thought that was an incredible game from him last night. The way that he. I'll get to the match-winning pass in a minute, but just the way that he was a handful every time he touched the ball playing at left centre, the kicks behind the line, he was just such a handful for the Roosters against his old club, and then the magical pass for Isaiah Tass to get them ahead when they had no right to really win that game after losing both their halves and a right winger. It makes it pretty hard for any team, but. Yeah, that was a Latrell masterclass in his return from injury.
It was a perfect goldfish memory moment. It's a little bit like James Maloney last night. He put two kicks out on the full. He missed the tackle on Siwa Wong, which is a try to Dom Young, Latrell. But you want people trying to risk, those 40-20 quicks. That's what the best players are paid for. But then they've got the ability to forget about it and then come up with the big plays when they needed to.
That's exactly right. And I think you got to say a big influence on Latrell, and you could see it all over. Not just last night's game, but the start of the season is Wayne Bennett. Yeah, like he just was. If another Latrell might have put his head down and let those mistakes haunt him, but they didn't, and he came up with the match-winning play when it was needed. It was. I was so impressed with South last night. Given what they went through. Like the club say they've got no real idea so far how bad Cody and Jamie Humphreys are with their hamstring injuries. Ravalawa is exactly the same. They're waiting on scans today, but the way that they all stood up, the way that Bud Sullivan stood up, when he had to, that's Wayne's doing something pretty special there at South Sydney already.
Well, let's stay on that. The first leg of the Ron Coote Cup for 2025. That game last night, the Rabbitohs eventual winners, 20 points to 14 over the Roosters. Snatching victory in those last moments. They still had a little bit to go, but in saying that, all those players, it doesn't matter. It's like those Wayne Bennett coach teams. It doesn't matter what number you got on your back. Just keep turning up for one another. And that's what I loved about the game last night. Just such great rivalry, both between both these sides. I've been banging on about this for last season and the start of this season.
Bang away.
I've been banging on. People have been laughing
Bang your
at
drum.
me. But when Latrell moved closer to the play of the ball, when he had to have the ball in his hands with Jamie Humphreys off, and also Cody Walker off, and Bud Sullivan coming on, just playing a bit of a utility role everywhere. The minute he had his hands on the ball at, so let's say it's 5'8", number 6, he was far more engaged in the game. As a defender, if I'm a back rower about to run on the ball and I look where Latrell's parked himself defensively as a 5'8", I'm looking for somewhere else to run because he's a big body, and when he wants to try and whack you, he can whack you when he wants to as well. I know there'd be a higher work rate, but that just comes down to your fitness.
Don't you reckon that's where he should end up?
I think that's where he will end up. I think
because that's where he played a lot of his junior footy, and Bennett's on the record saying that's where he should. He thinks he's a 5'8".
It's a little bit like Lockie, different builds, But Lockie
Slowly.
was 5'8", then went to fullback, and then the back end of his career, he moved up into the 5'8" position and won golden boots at both positions. I think the closer you get him to, because we're seeing with Jack Whiten, who's been so good at the start of the year, but what Jack Whiten's been doing really well is defence and also just taking a lot of those real tough hit-ups. I want to see Jack Whiten with the ball in his hands. And so if you've got Jack Whiten and Latrell in the centres, personally myself, it's a little bit more difficult to get to them the ball in and get them on one-on-one situations. So moving him to 6 and potentially Cody to 7, and then you've got Campbell Graham and Jack Whiten in the centres, and then in a perfect world you've got Alex Johnston, Ravalawa or Tyrone Munro on the wings and young Jai Gray at fullback. That's a pretty formidable backline. Then you've got your Bud Sullivans and Jamie Humphreys and Lewis Dodds that just add part of your depth.
Yeah, I think you should text that line up through to Wayne. He'd really appreciate that.
Tell the greatest coach of all time.
How to pick his team.
I think he knows what he's doing.
But Wayne's the one who has put it on the record a couple of years ago. I think they were struggling for an Origin 5'8" a few years ago, and I made the point about.
Yep.
I echoed it on SEN here on Morning Glory, and I got flogged by the listeners. But there's certainly merit in it for sure. The thing I liked about Wayne made a really interesting point after the presser when he said, at 14-8, they could have certainly turned it up, both their halves off. But he made some really telling comments straight after the game. Let's have a listen.
It's up there maybe in my coaching career. It's in the grand final, I can tell you. It's to overcome what they overcome tonight against a quality football team that was playing well themselves. It was pretty special.
Yeah, he had a lot of sentiment about him last night, Wayne, in his post-match press conference.
He cracked a couple of jokes too. Happy Wayne.
Yeah, the message that he sent to not only just about his team and to the fans, but what he said as the game as a whole. He more or less just said, this is worse the effect. This is what rugby league's about. This is why we fall in love with the game. These sort of rivalries, these sort of games.
I'm sure the Roosters feel exactly the same way.
Probably not.
This morning.
Hey, the funny thing about it, I'm just looking at their next 5 games. The Rabbits, the Roosters, is it? No. I'll get to a little bit later. The Panthers. The way the draw is mapped out, I think they play each other again in a couple of more weeks. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, we'll have a chat about that a little bit later on. But just the tries of Sandon Smith to Tola very early, 7th and 11th minute. Lindsay Collins. MCL injury in a collision in the end goal, not ideal.
Picking up some injuries, isn't he?
And also Origin, sort of, I know we don't want to talk about Origin at the moment, but before you know it, in 2 or 3 weeks, on this show, we're going to be talking about Origin teams and Origin selection. So he's a big part of the Queensland team. As you said, 14 fit players. Humphrey goes off early. Cody Walker with that tightness of the hamstring. Jai Gray leading the Dally M's into round 5.
He's incredible, isn't he?
And out of the 2 Dally M judges who give 3 points apiece, I'm pretty sure that he would have got at least 4 or 5 points last night, without a doubt. I mean, I think there'll be one judge who'll give Latrell 3 points.
Sure.
But he came up with a lot of mistakes, Latrell. But what I mean also is what I said earlier on.
But that's
the great players,
that's Latrell.
I know.
He pushes the envelope.
And we want that from the best players.
That's right. But when the game was on the line, and he does that, he's done it more than once in his career.
Yep.
When the game's on the line, he comes up with it. I thought, they made mention of it afterwards. The really telling play was the short dropout where it landed basically on South's own line and then bounced forward and then Jai Arrow pounced on it, and they actually made Cody Walker made reference to it in the presser afterwards. Those big plays that turn matches. I was walking my dog at about 6:30 this morning in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, and believe me, a Roosters supporter came up to me and made mention of that moment as the pivotal moment that the game swung.
That happened twice last night.
It did, didn't it? He did it a couple of times.
So that one with Jai Arrow, and I apologise, I can't remember the other player that was involved, but
Burns.
Was it Burns?
Yeah.
The foresight...
According to the guy I saw at the dog park this morning.
The foresight of Jai Arrow and other South players as well to realise it wasn't going to go the 10 metres, well short of the 10 metres, but then to push themselves on the other side of the 10 metres and just wait there in case they're needed.
I like the short dropout. It turns into a lottery, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Lockie Hubner, the lock forward for South Sydney.
Yeah.
I think high 40s in tackles, just a real Wayne Bennett type player. When you look back the history of Wayne Bennett, he's always had one of these players in his side. one player that just does all the dirty work, doesn't get any of the recognition or any of the headlines throughout the week and leading into the games, but he just knows that guy's going to turn up. Now, with the injury to Cam Murray, not the same sort of player, but just forging a pretty good career for himself.
He is. He had another blinder last night. That's a Wayne Bennett play, isn't it? To pull those sort of players out and squeeze the lemon and get the most out of them.
Yep. And on the Roosters as well, congratulations to Billy Smith on his return. Before we get to the break, 2020 he did a knee, 21 did a shoulder, 22 another knee, and 23 fractured jaw. Finally getting back on.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that was his first game since really. Well, he played New South Wales Cup 2 matches. I heard. Yeah. Started last year.
Yep.
Not good. And good to see him get over for a meat pie.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, get involved in the show like we said. 1300 01 1170 is the phone line, and also if you want to send a text 0457 736 736. This is Saturday League Kickoff for Wing House. The best seats and beers. Always guaranteed. Stick around. After the break, we're going to talk a little bit more of round 5 of the NRL. Yeah, welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff. Simulcast live on Fox League and also across the SEN network. So welcome to all our rugby league lovers on this Saturday morning. Myself, Scott Sattler, Andrew Webster, talking everything that has happened throughout the week leading into round 5 and also some of the big topics around round 5 with Thursday and the 2 Friday night games. And we're going to get stuck into those now. The other Friday night game, I should say, which was the Panthers hosting the Cowboys at CommBank Stadium. Was fortunate enough to call this game for SEN League last night with Joel Kane and Luke Prittis as well. Good game, I've got to say. Great finish. Had a lot of really big moments in this game that I think we're going to be seeing a fair bit of throughout this season when it comes to individual moments, mostly in defence. But in the end, the Cowboys 22 are able to hold off the Panthers 18. Fast finishing Panthers, and they're getting a little bit too used to that, aren't they? Having to chase these leads down.
They look like they're going to snatch it in the end there. When Alamotti almost contorted himself to score in the corner there, I thought, oh my God, this is after, I don't want to be too critical, Casey McLean bombed one on the other side of the field, but, those things happen. And, he's an inexperienced player and he'll learn from that. But, when Alamotti looked like he'd bent himself over into the corner and just that back foot dragged across the line. And then even right up to the very last sort of couple of plays, you thought, here we are, they can pull it out of the fire. But I'm sure Ivan Cleary would be hoping that they don't wait till the last minute from now on. But 4 in a row, first time since 2019, which was a horrific year for Penrith and really was the catalyst for them to turn things around and go on the amazing run that they have. People are going to be dancing on the Penrith Panthers' grave. I'm not ready to do it yet. I'm not going to say they can't make the 4. I'm not going to say they can't make the 8. I'm not going to say this is the end. But if it's not, if this is the end of this great run for the Panthers, then I think we have to be able to go, you know what, that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been up for a while.
Yeah, you're right. They win their games by... It's death by 1,000 cuts. They just do the same thing over and over again. They make very few mistakes. They wait for the opposition to blink, and then they pounce, and then they'll do it again, and they'll just continue just to compound the pressure upon you. But I've got to say, you don't want to be in this situation as a Penrith fan, and a Penrith player and as a coach. But also, there's a part about them when they're chasing. They're one of the most exciting teams in the comp.
When they're throwing the ball around, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's particularly when you've got players like Cleary there. You think they're always going to be a hope, and they've got some great, quality outside backs that can get the job done for them. But not last night. The Cows. They looked good. The Cows.
They did. They're gritty. They're really resilient. They stay in the fight. Now, you probably haven't said that about the Cowboys teams of the past over the last year or so, but I thought last night they just continued to stay in the fight. They came out and scored that try early in the second half, which really put a hinder on the Panthers. Any sort of free flowing sort of rugby league they want to try and play.
Our man Jackson Purdue,
superstar, the kid made his debut in the NRL as a centre, but played Host Plus Cup, Queensland Cup. With their feeder clubs as really a fullback or in the halves, has never really played any, or if any, centre at all for any long period of time. And when Toddy Payton, this is the art of coaching as well, Toddy Payton goes to a kid who's never played centre at NRL level and says, you're going to make your debut on centre. and we're going to just teach you the basics. Don't worry about anything else. We're just going to worry about the basics in defence, when to make the right decisions, when you get the ball, just run as quickly as you can. And he's made a fist of it because last night he was amazing, not only in attack, but his last-ditch attempt on Paul Alamotti is the reason why his foot drags over the sideline.
Right.
Yeah.
Purdue. Did it. He was fantastic. You know what? They actually looked better. I thought it was a really telling period in the game when Robson got sin bin. I know we're going to talk about the head-eye crackdown later.
We are going to talk about the head-eye.
Yeah, because we haven't had enough crackdowns in this game to talk about, have we?
They should have done it on Magic Round like they did a few years ago.
Well, they should have announced it. They should have decided to tell all the clubs 3 hours before Magic Round, because that's what rugby league needs, another last-minute crackdown. But when Robson was in the sin bin, they almost looked better. And they actually scored with him.
Yeah, they did.
Not down to 12 men. So to me, that was like a dagger into the heart of the Penrith Panthers.
I've always found as a player that if you had a player in the sin bin, you actually forgot about it. You didn't realise you had a player in the sin bin.
Right.
You just kept doing what you had to do. And for some reason, you just had to cover a little bit more ground. But it's just a matter of whether you're willing to do it or not. And they were. Vileo, I think it was, scored while he was in the bin. Yeah.
How many sin bins did you sit in? How many times were you binned for your sins?
Wasn't a lot. Probably 4 or 5. I remember there
Surprised me because you're quite a dirty player.
I remember there was a year.
I'm kidding.
I remember there was a year when they had a crackdown.
Another crackdown.
There was a crackdown on not attempting to use your foot to play the ball.
I haven't heard that one before.
So we played, I think it was Parramatta one night, I might be wrong, out at Penrith Stadium, and Stephen Clark was the referee. And I think he binned about 4 or 5 players. It was just ridiculous. He got to a stage
that sounds
where
like a
it was like
Clarky
9-aside
crackdown
at one stage. Yeah.
It's funny that the old play the ball, like striking the ball with your foot crackdown. I remember I went and sat in the bunker once. Like this is soon after the bunker had been created. And there was all this debate about how, whether it was working or not. So I went and sat in the bunker, and I was there with Tony Archer, who was the referee's boss. And he said, "You know what we're going to crack down?" I said, "What, Arch?" He goes, "To play the ball. Make sure people have an attempt." And I went, "Oh,
really?
Yeah, that was."
Is that the
so when it got
biggest issue in the game?
when it got brought up this season, I was like, "There you go." They're still trying to get people to play the ball with their foot.
Isaia Yo, 250 games. First Panther to ever play 250 games, which is quite amazing. We were talking about this during the week, myself and Matty Rogers on Sports Day. And I suppose what his belief was that no one hangs around Penrith long enough to play 300 games. I said, well, say that at your mercy. You'll never be welcome west of Northern Road ever again, Matty Rogers, because it's a great place, the Great West. But 250 games for Isaia Yo. Andrew Ryan, who's another proud Dubbo boy, was the one who presented him with his 250 jersey throughout the week, which is a good touch. Not to maybe go to Royce or Stevie Carter, who's second in line, or Greg Alexander, whoever it may be. They went to another Dubbo boy.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
He's a great story, Isaia Yo. He's a very much, if Nathan's in the, I've heard someone say this just the last few days. Might have been Matty Johns yesterday. If Nathan Cleary's in the immortal discussion, then Isaia Yo's got to be there as well. He's just so consistent. And didn't he try his guts out last night?
Royce Simmons says he's the best forward he's ever seen. Now, I know
he's seen some.
I know there's a touch of Penrith bias in that, but as you said, he's seen plenty of great forwards over the years. Some great moments. Clifford's tackle on Dane Laurie when he took the ball, the high ball, and looked like he was going to come out the other side, and no one would have caught him, pushed him into touch. Purdue's tackle on Alamotti, we said. Casey McLean's tackle on Robert Derby with the intercept right down on their try line. I reckon he had about a 10 or 12 metre head start. And Casey McLean and Jenkins did a great job of trying to wind him in. It was a big play. There's a lot of really big plays. Now, Ivan Cleary, I've got to say he was pretty good in his post-match press conference. I know that if he thinks that they can at least get to the top 4, they can still win the comp. I think we all believe that when you've got Nathan Cleary, Isaia Yo, Brian To'o and co. But this is what he had to say in the post-match press conference.
But it's just sort of clear that we're not, that flow's not there, and some of the errors we're talking about are uncharacteristic, coming from various different players that just usually wouldn't do that. So we're in sort of uncharted waters a little bit to some extent. So, I've all lost games and that, but yeah, it's clearly just the flow that you'd like. Yeah, it just isn't quite there.
Yeah, it isn't quite there because they've had a lot of change, and with change, you've got to probably take it back a couple of cogs just to try and just ensure that those new players that are coming into the side on a week-to-week basis, like your Casey McLeans, your Jenkins, who else is there? There's Jack Cole, those sort of players, just getting used to the word they use in rugby league, the most overused word at the moment is the process.
The process.
The process.
I like how I haven't talked about the flow.
The flow, I like that.
The flow, bro.
Well, they do have good flow, don't they?
They usually do, but
Yep.
they're not flowing very well at the moment.
So the question is,
they just look clunky, don't you think, in attack? Like,
They
and
do.
that's just, again, I know it's sort of stating the obvious, but it's like younger players, new combinations. Luai's gone, Fisher Harris isn't there. It's like it's just inevitable that it's going to take some time for them to get cracking.
Yeah.
But if they can just, I tell you what though, they do need to start notching some wins. I know that. Like they're going to lose touch with the A pretty quickly if they don't start knocking some wins over. So
Exactly.
There's a bit of heat on the Penny Panthers.
Next 4 games for the Panthers before we get to the break. The Dolphins come up next, then the Roosters, Seagulls, and the Broncos as well. This is Saturday League kickoff up next. We're going to get stuck into one of the big topics throughout the week, which is the head-high contact crackdown. Welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff. Whether you're watching us on Fox League Live or listening through the SEN app or all our listeners through SEN each and every day, welcome to the show. On this Saturday morning, this beautiful Saturday morning, we're in Sydney. It is beautiful here wherever you're watching and listening from. I hope it's a beautiful day where you are. There's been a lot of rain around southeast Queensland and North Queensland. I hope that has subsided as well. It hasn't been too much damage. To all the farmers out west of Queensland have lost a lot of livestock, cattle, damage to properties. We hope the cleanup there isn't is as good as it possibly can be in getting all the assistance you need. So, on the show, we teased a little bit earlier on that we want to talk about the NRL crackdown, and there's a crackdown each and every year. Most years, isn't there, Webby? What's been the most noticeable crackdown over the years?
Oh, the Magic Round one was the most noticeable, just because of the way that it was done. Like Peter V'landys informed all the CEOs a few hours before Magic Round in 2020, was it? 2021? It was 2021, sorry. Yes. Yeah, 21, God.
Yeah.
2020, well, the ground...
22 it might have been, is it? I don't know. 0457 736 736.
If you can tell us...
We only work in the game.
If you can tell us, it all blurs into one. I think it was 21. And we saw the mayhem that ensued as a result because the edict went down to referees and they were very confused about it. Look, I don't know, this sort of reminds me of when they brought in the shoulder charge edict about 10 or so years ago, and I remember talking to Craig Bellamy, who made a very good point and said, look, head contact to the head has never been allowed.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So I know rugby league is not a black and white game, and I think that's how the Magic Round crackdown was adjudicated to referees who weren't sure of how it should happen, or how it should be rolled out. I think this one's been okay. I don't know if Hudson Young deserved to be sin binned. To me, it looked like McGuinness just simply ran into his shoulder. It just looked like a just inevitable contact that happens in a game of footy. But I also appreciate where the NRL are coming from. It's a really tricky situation with CTE, with the looming threat of litigation that's always going to be there. You have lawyers trying to get players together for class actions all the time. We've seen what's happened in the NFL. We're seeing what's happened in league in England. We've seen what's happened in rugby union. You see what's happening in AFL. So league can't pretend that it's immune to any pretty serious litigation that will threaten its future. But it's a tough game played by tough men.
Forceful impact is what they're saying. Now, I'm going to go through on the NRL website the difference between a careless high tackle and what they class a reckless high tackle as well. So they are sin bidding for what they call careless high tackles. A lot of the people that listen again to Sports Day throughout the week will know my thoughts around Grade 1, Grade 2 careless high tackles if we're rubbing people out for 1 and 2 weeks because of that. We don't want players sitting on the sideline. I think there is a way that we can educate the players and warn them. Remember they used to have the letter system?
What a harshly worded letter.
You used to get a letter from the NRL. I'm not saying this is used to say, like in the 64th minute, you made forceful contact to Clint Shafrosky or whatever it may be. I don't know what I talked about you, Chock, what I brought your name up then. But
well, he probably deserved it.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the great men.
And they basically give you a warning and say, this contact has now been averaged at 60 points against your name. The minute you reach 100 points, that's 1 week. 200 points, that's 2 weeks, whatever it may be. I don't know whether that's a solution or not, but a careless high tackle is when a defending player makes forceful contact with the head or neck of an attacking player. The contact must be deemed careless in that the defending player has failed in his duty of care. Now, with the Hudson Young tackle the other night, the way that I always look at it is, did he have another option? And there's always another option when you are the primary defender, which is bend your back. Make a tackle down around underneath the ball. Don't try and tackle up over the ball where a lot of the and that's not the players' faults these days. It's mostly the clubs and the game's fault because they're not rewarding low tackles anymore. They're not rewarding the Jake Trebojeviches and those sorts of players that have really good tackle technique. So hence, for a number of years now, the wrestle has been introduced into the game, which forces players to tackle up over the ball. And when you're fatigued, you can get a little bit lazy and the arm makes contact with, or the shoulder makes contact with the head or the chin or the neck, whatever it may be. So until we start rewarding, somehow find some rewarding system for those sorts of tackles, we're going to continually be having people and players spend time off the field. Now, before you get into what I want you to mention, what you want to mention, reckless.
What do you want me to mention?
This is reckless. A player may foresee high contact. When do you notice the pause then?
I love the dramatic effect.
Foresee, in inverted commas, high contact when starting or even during a tackle. So you got to foresee what may happen during a tackle.
How do you do that?
So many moving parts.
Luckily, a game of rugby league these days is so slow that you can tell exactly what's going to happen in a tackle.
Exactly. So, what's the solution?
Well, this is an oldie, but a goodie, and I remember talking to no less than the great Michael Cronin about it 15 years ago. 2 in the tackle.
This has been
in the tackle.
It's been thrown up a number of times, and I think, you know what, the part of me years ago would have said, you know what, no, but I'm starting to feel as though in my older age that I think it may be the way forward. You go back and look at some of those great games, especially some of those great grand finals back in the 80s, 70s, and even the early 90s. Very rarely 3 players in a tackle. Definitely one player, not that third player coming in and taking the legs.
You know better than me. Explain the current. Like, I know every tackle's different, but is it right that like 2 up the top, 1 at the bottom? Yeah.
Well, they talk about
they talk about waltzing.
They talk about catching the defender. So, player takes a hit up, runs in between 2 defenders or at 1 defender. They'll catch him and take all the impact. As they take the impact, and sometimes it's forcing them backwards, they'll hold them up. They'll be really contacted to him. One player will, and have a look at it over the weekend, listeners and viewers on Fox League. A lot of players will have their head in and around sort of where their jawline is, so they stay connected. And then they'll just waltz them, like you said, and then that third player will come in and just clean their legs up. And try not to be forcible when they attack the legs. But that has been forced upon the clubs because there's been no reward for the good tackle in years gone by. So basically it's tackle low, let go of the legs straight away. So you can't get up to marker and you're basically out of play. There's no use for you, Jake Trebojevic to tackle, snap someone low, because it's going to be a more difficult task for you to get to marker.
And slowly try and get them onto their back.
Yep.
And as that happens, the defensive line sets, correct?
Yeah.
See, if there's 2 in the tackle, like the argument is that rugby league players are too big these days to not. And look,
it's all
I remember.
over the years.
Cameron Smith is on the record about saying this from his playing career. It's like, the players just got so big that's why Melbourne introduced wrestling techniques, because just to try and combat the size of other players. I think they've performed it, to a level beyond just that. But it's. I don't know why they don't trial it in trial matches. I don't know why they don't try more, just to see how 2 would work. And I know it would probably make things a lot quicker, but the game's quick now. Maybe maybe we don't need such a quick ruck speed. Artificially try and make the ruck quicker by having set restarts.
I tell you what, I think they've got to compromise. If they did do that, I think they've probably got to take the 6 again away, because with 2 in the tackle, what it would entice is quicker play the balls, because if you win that tackle with the ball in hand, you're going to get up quicker, play the balls. The hookers can get out of dummy half. The halfbacks can play a lot more flatter into the line. You'll see a lot more forward movement from the attacking side, and also it also entices the offload. It brings the offload back into the game, which we don't have enough of. Maxi King, who's a tremendous offloader of the ball for the Bulldogs and started the season off beautifully. That was part of his game when he was coming through as an 18, 19-year-old. He was one of these front rows that had a beautiful offload, and that got taken out of his game. One, because of coaching. Two, because of the amount of players in tackles. And I'm only using him as an example because I've known him for so long. And Cameron Ciraldo has started to try to reintroduce that offload into his game.
The great blocker, Roach.
And he was a lefty as well. You weren't expecting it.
The way that he could offload, like that was almost as much a part of his game as his toughness and insanity.
Yeah, so we want to hear you, if you've got an opinion on the high contact and what some of the solutions are, give us a call, please. 1300 01 1170. It's like I was pleading then, wasn't I?
Please, solve it for us.
Give us a call, 1300 01 1170 if you've got an opinion or you may have a solution. I think, I look at some of the really good low tacklers in the game and you can throw Victor Radley in there, but the argument is that he's the head on the hip.
On the hip.
And we talked about this last week. I think that's just a technique thing. One, we aren't taught to make first contact. They are teaching it at club level, but it's not the primary focus for a lot of coaches.
The whole concussion, so much of the concussion debate that when I talk to NRL coaches about it is like that so much of it could be eliminated from bad tackle technique. Like I can't remember last season. I can't remember a season in which there were so many head clashes.
Yeah,
like it's just they're literally knocking each other out.
Who's some players that come to mind that if you had two players in the tackle, purely from an attacking point of view, they would have a little bit more freedom around the ruck? Is there anyone that comes to mind that would be able to just exploit that as good as possible?
Do you mean the ball carrier?
Yeah, or even maybe dummy half, like Damien Cook, for example.
Oh yeah, Cookie be great.
He would love that.
Who else would be good? Well, you look at someone like Latrell.
Yeah.
With his size and his speed, imagine him, like how quick he could, he just scatters blokes the way that he runs the ball.
Well, you'd have someone like two players in the tackle, Keon Kulamatangi, winning the play of the ball. As he gets up, there's maybe a couple of guys on the ground that can't get to marker, and Jai Gray pushes Peter Mamazoulis out of the way, picks up the ball, takes off.
You know what? While we're at it, let's go right back. Let's get really retro. I want the.
I love retro.
I love the tap, the quick tap, tap ahead.
I saw some footage during the week of Freddie Fittler.
Right.
Both he and Joey. And they were talking about the old rule where he makes this break and he gets tackled against Manly. He's a metre out from the try line. John Hopewadi and Matt Ridge, they get up and they don't get to marker. They stand on the try line either side of him. He tapped it forward in the end goal, leapt forward and scored.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Benny Elias did it for New South Wales and an Origin from memory.
Who's that?
Benny Elias.
Yes, he was a master.
He was a master at it. The other one, and I'll tell you what he was also good at, I wouldn't mind this coming back, raking the ball back from marker.
That got ugly, didn't it?
That got ugly.
That got
I
really
didn't
ugly.
mind that. But you know what, though? But it always gave a team hope late in the game.
Yeah.
And you know what? While we're at it, get big shoulder pads, massive oversized shirts.
The Wayne Pearce shoulder
5
pads.
minutes
Remember
in
those?
the bin. Yeah.
They're outstanding, the Wayne Pearce. Actually, while we're at it, and I love it that you go retro.
I am very retro.
Let's go back to the Dragons wearing the torpedoes.
Every time I see Chook Heron, I see Chook
Tony
Heron.
Priddle, a front row with bike pants on.
The torpedo pants.
Outstanding.
Yet further evidence of why it is the greatest game of all.
Give us a call, 1300 01 1170. This is Saturday League Kickoff. And coming up next on Saturday League Kickoff, we're going to talk a little bit more about that exciting Thursday night game, which, of course, the Raiders, the last few moments getting over the top of the Sharkies. Welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff, simulcast live on Fox League and also all our listeners through the SEN network and on the SEN app. If you're out on this beautiful day, if you're in Sydney where we are, it is a magnificent day. You've already taken Stevie or Staffy for a walk.
I've taken my dog for a walk. It's a cracking day there today.
Yep.
Big day of racing at Randwick too. So.
Oh, there is too. Yeah, absolutely. Big fight tomorrow. Tim Zoo, Joey Spencer in Zoo Castle.
That's how old I am. I remember seeing Kostya fight in Newcastle in the 90s.
That's why he's going back there, isn't it? Because they embraced Costa.
They loved him there. As one of the.
And you can see all that on Main Event as well tomorrow.
Joey Spencer.
Joey Spencer's a good fighter. 25. I think he's from Michigan. He's 19-1. He's a good fighter. This kid. This could go either way when it
Danger
comes.
fight.
Yeah, career defining. I think.
Oh, 100% it is
for Tim Zoo. For both of them actually. Whoever wins will start getting mentioned about being in some of those title fights in the coming 12 months. Hey, listen, before we get to some of our callers, and we have got a few there, I just want to quickly get to you. We talked about this during the break. Some of the stats I know stats can get boring, but it also can paint a bit of a picture with that Panthers-North Queensland game. Panthers pretty much in attack won everything. The amount of runs taken, all the run meters, post-contact meters, line breaks, average set meters, like 42, 43 meters per set, kick return meters from fullbacks and wingers. But there's one glaring statistic, I should say.
This is the one that stood out for me after last night's match. 42 missed tackles from the Penrith Panthers. 42 compared to the Cows' 24. That is just something we do not expect from the Penrith Panthers.
Let's get to our callers, 1300 01 1170. We wanted the listeners to, and also the viewers, to also have a view around the head contact edict that's come out from the NRL leading into round 5. We've got Paul from West Wallsend in New South Wales. How are you, Paul?
Yeah, good fellas. What a bottler of the day for rugby league today.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
outstanding 3 games.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm going to my local footy. I'll keep my ear on big footy.
Who's your local team, Paul? At West Wallsend.
West Wallsend Magpies.
Yeah, nice. So who are you playing? Is
I'm their chaplain and photographer.
Oh, good stuff. Who are you playing? Yeah. Not the Curry Bulldogs?
No, Cardiff Cobras.
Okay, yep. Nice.
It's going to be on today. It's going to be a great game. Can't wait.
Great competition.
I would love the league to bring a trial of 2 tacklers. Just, be it in reserve grade or something, give it a shot, because I think it'll free it up a bit. You'll get less head contact because, and with the guys who are tackling as well, like they're knocking each other out with numbers in tackles. You're going to see less of that. And my quick comment on retro, I want to see cotton jumpers come back with collars.
Great stuff, Paul. Great
good
stuff.
On you, Paul.
That's great.
You.
Love the retro view.
Very good.
But also, he makes a good point. Trial it in New South Wales Cup. Just see how it goes for a couple of weeks. I know there's still a lot at stake for New South Wales Cup and where you are on the ladder and winning a comp, whatever it may be. But if the only other solution is if it's not New South Wales Cup, trials next year. Let's give it a go.
Yeah, but I 100% agree with the caller. But rugby league has done so well. Everyone keeps talking about what a great job Peter V'landys and Andrew Abdo have done, and they have. They have. Everyone agrees on that. But these are some very fundamental parts of the game in terms of head highs and incidental contact like we've just discussed. So I don't know why you wouldn't trial it while it shouldn't have been trialled even sooner. And then there's other parts of the game too, like the contracting system and other areas that really do need to be addressed. I know they can't do everything, but to me, they're really fundamental stuff at the very basic level of the game that need to be looked at. Yeah,
well said. Now we've got Mooney from Western Sydney, 1300 01 1170. How are you, Mooney?
Good, thanks, boys. How's your Saturday? Nice and sunny in Sydney, isn't it?
It's beautiful in Sydney at the moment. Like we said, those in Queensland, hope the rain has calmed down a little bit.
2 quick things. Yep. Being a Raiders supporter, I'm a happy chappy, but one thing was thank God they won, because I think we might have had a nuclear explosion in Canberra on Thursday night otherwise.
From the coach?
Yeah, I think so. And the other one about your legs tackle, encouraging it, I think a good thing to do maybe would be call, and make it easy on the refs for them, would be to call dominant tackle when they make a legs tackle. Like that one by Ethan Strange on the Thursday night that stopped the try to the winger, where he just chopped him down, like chopped the centre down before he could pass it to the unmarked to the winger. That was a great legs tackle. And, I mean, if they had something like it said dominant tackle, and then, with dominant tackles, they always give an extra second or two.
Yeah, they do.
That might encourage, more people to do the legs tackle.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, Mooney. 2 callers have made 2 really good points, and
our callers are making a hell of a lot of sense.
More sense than us.
Absolutely,
each and every Saturday.
Not entirely hard.
But it is. It's again, it has to come back to the NRL first and foremost, implementing it. And then secondly, if the coaches see an advantage from it, they will coach it.
I think we need a summit at the end of the year to discuss it. Yeah.
Where will this summit be? In Santorini. Can we
I think we should have it at Cancun.
Yeah,
let's go.
Not? Why not?
Santorini, that'll do. Why don't we have one every year? Like, we'll just move around.
What a beautiful part of the world. Bowen in Queensland, which, remember the movie Australia? Hugh Jackman
Of course.
Nicole Kidman?
I've got family that live at Bowen.
Yeah, the pub in Bowen played a huge part in that. And we've got Ian from Bowen, 1300 01 1170. How are you, Ian?
Yeah, good, thanks, boys. Yourselves?
Hey, Ian, is Mick McLean, former Origin player, Roosters, Gold Coast, is he still in and around Bowen?
Yeah, to my knowledge, he still lives here, but he doesn't own the pub anymore.
Okay. Great guy, Mick McLean.
Yeah, he was a great player too back in the 80s and the early 90s, a really tough second rower.
Yep. What's on your mind?
And, mate, I was just wanting to listen to you all comment about the tackling and that, and I grew up playing league late 60s right through the 70s into the 80s. Always a legs tackler, mate. I never went high because I was a bit too small. And I used to always grab me out of the second row or a prop and say, I'll go low, you hit him high. The old sandwich tackle, Scotty. You remember that? And used to just cut him in half, mate. And, they'd always be passing the ball before they come to you again after that, But just commenting on the legs tackles, if one of the first two players into a tackle can't take the legs, they're not being taught properly. This idea of holding a bloke up that's defenceless and then a bloke diving in around his knees, third man in, that's garbage as far as I'm concerned. And as soon as I see those tackles in a game, which is only a couple of minutes in, I turn it off, mate. I haven't watched a full game of league for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And the fourth man coming in, and the only reason he's coming in is to play the ball down.
You're exactly right.
They've got to do something about it. And they should ban the third man coming in low. Give one of the first two players coming in low, give them a bit of reward to wrestle with the bloke and hold him up a bit, maybe. And but the tackling is terrible because I grew up playing hooker back in them days, mate. And a hooker, your old man would have loved hookers back in the day,
Yeah, exactly. Ian, you make some great points. So I get a little bit nervous when that third man's going in. You don't know whether that player that they're going in on, it doesn't have to be forcible, whether they've got pre-existing ankle and knee injuries, whatever it may be. You just don't know. So I think the NRL, there are some other solutions. It's just about everyone sitting down and like you're saying, a bit of a summit to talk about what's going to be in the best interest. What's going to be in the best interest of the game?
Maybe not a summit in Santorini, but these are the issues that get put into the too hard basket by the game constantly, year after year after year. And I think it's time that they actually try to do something about it. The footy's great. Don't get us wrong. And look, and the 6 to go change of rule that came in during COVID has certainly helped eliminate a lot of the wrestling from the game, but it's worth looking at.
Do you think it's worth discussing that if they did make a change, maybe it was a two-man tackle, that the 6 again probably has to be taken out?
Well, we won't know until we trial it.
Yeah, you're true.
Yeah,
you're right.
Maybe just not as much of them.
Yep. Hey, plenty more coming up on SEN and also Fox League as well, especially SEN, because our Fox League listeners, viewers, I should say, are going to leave us very, very soon. We've got plenty more to talk about. We're going to talk about the Thursday night game, which is, of course, the Raiders up against the Sharkies, the Payne Haas and Tino Fasuamala Ali. Will they pledge their allegiance to Samoa? I've got a couple of opinions around. I think it'll work both ways, to be quite honest. I don't know what you think, Webby. We'll hear about that. A Saturday preview also, because a lot of good games, and the Manly and Melbourne rivalry as well. There's always been a great rivalry. Can you remember when the Battle of Brookie was?
2011, I was there.
2011. Like I said, Fox League viewers, you are leaving us right now, but if you want to keep listening, just get the SEN app or go to one of the SEN channels to listen to the second hour of Saturday League Kickoff. Scotty Sattler, Andrew Webster. We'll be back very, very soon. For the second hour of Saturday League kickoff, Scott Sattler, Andrew Webster, and if you're joining us through the SEN network, welcome back to the show. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome for a Saturday morning, whether it's via the app or one of the SEN channels as well, and also Fox League viewers. If you switched over to us at SEN as well, if it's your first time, welcome. We hope you won't leave throughout each and every day when you're in the car, walking the dog, whatever it may be. You can listen to 24 hours of rugby league. No one talks more rugby league than SEN, we know that. So, first hour recap, we went across the 2 Friday night games. Great games, Webby. I mean, like I said earlier on, I was fortunate enough to be out at Combank to call that Cowboys and Panthers game, and it was just some amazing individual performances across that game. But then to get home into the motel room, and then watch
hotel room on your own.
Yeah, my packet of Doritos chips, guilt eating, and watching that South and Rabbitohs game
and some Pringles.
Yeah, South and Roosters game, I should say. Outstanding Friday night. And we're going to talk about Thursday night very soon. But as we touched on earlier on, the NRL bosses with fan engagement, viewing numbers, attendance numbers, ticking all the right boxes at the moment.
The game's flying. Can I just do a quick shout out to Luke Keary too?
Luke Keary,
he just messaged before. He's been watching us over there in France, where he now plays.
Really?
For Catalan.
What a great guy.
He's one of the champions, Luke Keary.
And you know what I
don't know what he'd be doing now. He'd be sipping a rosé.
You know what I love about Luke Keary is that
a baguette.
The way the game was going, many were saying there was no room for a guy of his size in the game, and he just continued just to prove people wrong. What a 3 premierships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I always reckon the mark of a player is how many, if they can win premierships at 2 clubs.
Yep.
And he did.
Yeah.
You know, so that's not easily done.
His pass on to GI in that 2014 grand final, Johnny Sutton, and then Keary and then the Goanna. One of the most iconic moments, I think, in modern day rugby league when it comes to grand finals.
Absolutely. He's
great guy.
I bet you the Roosters would love to have him at the moment.
Proud boy from Ipswich. Proud Queenslander, Luke Keary.
Here we go.
Played for the Burleigh Bears.
He did.
Yeah. So a bloke like
proud
Peter,
New South Welshman. He's
like
said
Peter
it on the
Sterling,
record.
born in Toowoomba.
Oh, you really want to go down this path?
Let's do it.
Oh, Greg Inglis?
Yeah.
There's one.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big one.
So you're still 2-1. We're still 2-1.
Let me go on the phone to
Adrian Lamb, Papua New
Adrian
Guinea.
Lamb, exactly. Yeah, I forgot about that one. Brad Thorne.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well,
also,
we're going to talk about Origin eligibility rules
we're going to do it
later,
now or not? No. Hey, Rabbitohs to Allianz as well. That stirred up some emotions throughout the week, thanks to our very own Andrew Webster.
All I did was report.
Coming up also,
happened.
we're going to talk about Payne Haas. During the week, I thought he's very mature, and he's addressed to the media saying, listen, I'm not going to address this until after Origin. I want to focus on my footy and possible allegiance to Samoa, which is going to be after the Origin series. Now it's really quick for listeners to say, he's going to do it after Origin because he just wants to get his Origin payments. He's $30,000 per game. Well, he's allowed to play Origin anyway if he does pledge allegiance.
Doesn't matter.
To Samoa.
Yeah, I find it a funny debate about whether he should or shouldn't go there. It's I know we're going to talk about it later, but I suppose it's just the game's at a very interesting crossroads in terms of international, where it wants to take international football and what that means for Origin, which is the showpiece of the NRL competition. Yep,
and also the Seagulls and Storm rivalry. There's a bit of a timeline. This was starting to brew well before 2011. I think it dates back to maybe 2007, and then it boiled over into 2008, I think, and we'll get to that very, very soon. And if you want to get involved in the show, 0457 736 736. We'd rather hear from you also, actually. 1300 01 1170 if you want to give us a call. Now, let's get into that debate around Rabbitohs to Allianz Stadium. Now, you're going to educate me here, Webby.
Am I?
You're a very good educator.
That's always a bit of a worry.
So, the New South Wales government, they manage Allianz, the brand new Allianz, and they also manage Accor Stadium.
They do.
That's correct?
They do.
So they obviously...
They didn't, though, as two separate entities.
Okay.
When the deal was struck between the Rabbitohs and what was then Telstra Stadium, which was then Venues Live in 2005. And that was before, it needs to be made very clear, before Russell Crowe and Peter Holmes-Court took over the South Sydney club. So South Sydney basically went out there. I know Roosters supporters have made this point very clear to me and others this week. They're the ones who sold their soul and went out there. They needed to. They needed the money. It's just that simple.
Yep.
And the deal that was offered to Shane Richardson, who was the CEO of South at the time, was far, far superior out at Sydney Olympic Park than what was on the table from what was then the Sydney Cricket Ground Trust.
And when you're a numbers man, like Shane Richardson is, and every CEO is, it looks better on your bottom line. You want fans to turn up, but
you need money. They needed money. They're at a point where they needed to survive. They're on the bones of their backside, and hence why the members voted for Russell and Holmes Accord to take over the club.
So when it comes to Accor Stadium, not ideal for some of the clashes that we see there when it comes to aesthetically, if you're watching it on TV and syncing your phone up to SEN League and listening to it, doesn't look great. Last night it looked really good, actually, I thought. Now,
but can you tell me how in the hell that game would not have been better at a packed Allianz Stadium?
Exactly.
As we've seen some epic battles there in the past.
Now, the government want activity at Accor and activity at Allianz. They don't want to take one team from Accor, and correct me if I'm wrong. They don't want to take one product, which is South Sydney, and maybe throw it at Allianz, which is going to decrease the amount of activity on Accor. Is that...
They want content. They need content out there too.
2030 is their contract.
That's when they're contracted too. But this is where it gets a little bit. I hope I don't bore people with this. But so the argument by Venues New South Wales and from the Roosters, who call Allianz their home, which it is, but it's not their stadium, is that you did the deal with no specific clause in that contract to say that there was going to be an upgrade or any refurbishment of the stadium out at Sydney Olympic Park. When they did that deal in 2016, there was no clause. But if you go back to that time, and I covered all the stadium wars and all that, there was like a political issue between basically for the Liberal government, the bad government and the Berejiklian governments of the day. And it was about which one was going to get done first. It wasn't about whether either one of them was going to get done. It was which one was first. Was it Allianz or was it Accor? In the end, it went to Allianz, but South extended thinking, like everyone else, that the Olympic Stadium was going to be refurbished. That didn't happen because of COVID. And then, according to Blake Solly, the CEO of South Sydney, there is a clause in their deal from November 21 that says that the government will have reasonable endeavours to fix up to refurbish that stadium. I don't really care about what's in the deal or not. I just think that it is a taxpayer-funded stadium. I'm not saying that South Sydney should call it their home full stop, but I do think, and last night was a great example of it, that Sydney stadiums, again, which have been paid for by the taxpayer, should be used in the most appropriate way when possible. For big games, use Accor. But for a game like that last night, it should be at Allianz. I know the Matildas there were last night, but they could have had it on a Thursday night, they could have had it tonight, they could have had it on a Sunday afternoon. They would have got a huge crowd. And I just think the game and also the government need to be flexible about what's best for the fan.
Where possible is exactly the right clause, because at the end of the day, Webby, it's about what's in the best interest of the game, isn't it?
And absolutely.
And aesthetically, if you're watching on TV, and even from an audio perspective, you're just listening on SEN League, it just makes sense. Now, Blake Solly obviously come out and he's a wonderful administrator, Blake Solly, a hell of a nice guy as well. Dye in the Wool rugby league man has basically said, the Roosters, you don't own Allianz, which is right, absolutely right. But you do get a sense that it is your home. I get that from the Roosters, but I would love nothing more to add to this rivalry that they share a home ground.
The Roosters, Nick Politis, the chairman of the Roosters, put a lot of time and effort into Allianz and also money into Allianz. Not anywhere near it's the figure that I've been quoted is $8 to $12 million of an $828 million stadium. But they get their centre of excellence there. It's a tremendous facility. I get the Roosters have ownership over it. It'll always be their team, but I don't think it belongs to them as much as it belongs to South. That the Dragons shouldn't be able to use it. That the Tigers shouldn't be able to use it. Canterbury should be able to use it, Cronulla, Manly, whoever, but it is a world-class facility that costs nearly $1 billion that should be getting more traffic than what it does. They talk about the surface not being adequate. Well, that's rubbish. If it's not adequate, then why? I'm fired up.
And they should put a roof on it.
Put a roof on it.
Put a roof on it. Hey, Thursday night before we get to the
press
break.
box.
GIA Stadia, yeah, the press box. Who designs a press box?
The press box is actually enormous, and the food in it is next level.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Seabus Super Stadium, they've got the worst calling boxes ever.
Have they?
Yeah.
They do the well. I haven't been to that Allianz Stadium press box many times, but it's like there's a Justin Hem's cheeseburger spring roll thing that I ate on the first night and took a bite and just got oil all over my.
I love nothing more. I just want a visual. Let's quickly get into the GIO Stadium. 24-20, the Raiders against the Sharkies. 18 all at the break. It was a great first half. And, well, they got out of jail, a minute 30 to go on the clock. We spoke about it earlier on. Seb Chris, great try to win that game. 16-4 in offloads. That's their strength, the Raiders. The ability to offload and just play off the back of it. Tom Starling and co. A big decision. I want to talk about this a little bit later on. We don't have enough time now, but Jamal Fogarty, round 6 clause in favour of the Raiders. They need to notify him by round 6, which is next week, whether they're going to take up that 1-year option with him, or we know that there is a multiple-year option out there for him at another club.
What do they do?
I think Ricky loves him that much that he doesn't want him to leave, but he loves him so much he'd want him to go and secure his future as well. Because they've got Ethan Sanders there. I know that's not the most ideal replacement because Jamal is a mature player, but let's talk about it a little bit later on. But before we do get to the break, let's get to Ricky Stewart in the post-match press conference.
Lara, we're not that ill-disciplined. It's like when we played Manly 2 weeks ago. This team is not that ill-disciplined. I don't know what I can do as a coach because I don't go out. As a coach, I don't go out and coach grubby tactics. I don't go out and coach to be ill-disciplined. We had nothing. We had no field position. I think the penalty count was 7-2. Okay, fine. If we're giving penalties away, that's great. You can't tell me other teams don't give away penalties as well. You know, it's. I hate talking, and Toddy is a wonderful referee. I'm not having a crack at him. He's a wonderful ref. I hope I'm allowed to give him a rap.
I think there's some authenticity in that.
I think there was. I don't know. I can't really read whether it was fair dinkum or not, Steve.
I tell you what, he would have walked out with Joey Tarpany. He would have had a big grin on his face.
Well, Tarpany did have a big grin on his face during the press.
Hey,
he had a bird's eye view of Ricky Mandis.
I know the way that I am. I won't get back to it. So I want to really briefly touch on Jamal Fogarty. What do you think will happen? It would make sense that we'd keep hold of him and that he'll play a huge role in their success, but they know they bought Ethan Sanders as the succession plan. Does he then get impatient about sitting another possible year behind Jamal?
Probably. I just find, don't you reckon, though, it's just starting to work with Jamal?
Well, he's a mature age debutant.
And he's been there a while.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's just starting to come together for Jamal and Canberra, and with the football that he's played and they've played so far this year. So there's a part of me that wants him definitely to stay to finish what he started.
I agree. And he's got great connections down there. He's very, very close to former player Jared Croker and his family. He's very, very close to Ricky. And as Ricky has said, and he said this last week, that I think his wife's Carlia, maybe. Forgive me if I'm wrong there, Jamal Fogarty, but he mentioned his wife's name, and that says a lot about a coach to say we love Jamal, but if he's got a deal out there for both he and his wife, I think it's Carlia and the 2 girls, I would also endorse him to take that if it's going to secure his future. Ricky. So by mentioning the wife's name means that they're a really close-knit club. The coach plays a huge role in their lives off the field as well, and that's what I love about him. Yeah,
that's him. That's the type of coach that Ricky is.
Yep, exactly. Hey, let's get to a break. In that game, Hudson Young, another star performance, and Ricky said post-match that it's the best start to a season he's ever seen Hudson Young have. The other back row, Britton Nakora, 2 tries. Jamal Fogarty, Nico Hines, 100% record with goal kicking as well. So let's get to a break here. Coming up next, we're going to discuss the situation around allegiances to other nations and what effect that's going to have on Origin and, most importantly, the international game. This is Saturday League Kickoff. Scott Sattler, Andrew Webster. This is Saturday League Kickoff, all thanks to Wing House. The best seats and beers always guaranteed. I think they'll have a few in there for the fight tomorrow. Tim Zhu, Joey Spencer. I can't wait for that. Alex Volkanovski's fighting following week as well.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Against a guy called Lopez, who's like one of the young guns coming through the UFC. Might be the week after, I'm not quite sure.
Are you into the UFC?
I love it.
Do you?
I am a boxing fan. That's if ever there was a sport that would rival my passion for rugby league, would be boxing.
Is that right?
I remember growing up in the pubs, and we lived in the pubs, and my father was a huge boxing fan, had a lot of boxing identities and friends, very close with Johnny Lewis. But he used to have a lot of black and white photos around the pubs that we lived in and that we owned of all some of the great old fighters like Dave Sands and Johnny Famechon and Tony Mundine and Vic Patrick, all these great boxers. And Steve from Dubbo, who'd be listening out there now, he'd be proud of Isaia Yo, even though he didn't win last night. He'd be a proud Dubbo boy with Isaiah, but he loves his boxing as well. And so I grew up on the back of boxing. We were at an Origin, or my dad was at an Origin match very early on when Jeff Fennick was about to fight for a world title. And they were walking from Lang Park, Dad and Johnny Lewis and Jeff. And a lot of people knew who Jeff was, but he wasn't sort of the international scene yet. And because Johnny Lewis had a jersey on, this guy just out of nowhere just crash tackled Johnny Lewis. And Jeff and Johnny Lewis were like father-son relationship back then. And Jeff just went, being that street mentality that he had as a kid, he went straight in for this guy, this Queensland supporter, just to do what Jeff does best. And the old man grabbed Jeff, like the little featherweight that he was, and sort of pulled him out by the collar and said, "Hey, you don't need to be in the front headlines. Let me sort this out."
Do you know I've accidentally punched Johnny Lewis?
Really? That's a claim to fame. Were you doing some training with him?
I used to do a lot of training with Johnny.
Yeah.
Urco Oval, like at 6 a.m. and, on the pads. And he used to have, like, this is a famous technique with a little 2 or 3 or 4 kilo weights.
Yes.
To air punch. And when he used to go on kangaroo tours as Bob Fulton's fitness trainer, I remember he said how like all the forwards, and he pulled out all these 2 kilo weights. So what are you talking about? And anyway, he said you punch for air punch for 5 minutes of that, your arms get very, very heavy. And anyway, we're doing it at Erskineville Oval that one day, and I was dancing around, and Johnny's there talking away about gibbering about whatever he's gibbering about, and I turned and I accidentally cut him.
Did drop him?
No, I just cut him, a little cut.
You got to add that you dropped him.
No, I'm not that stupid. But he is honestly one of the greatest men.
He is a
in
beautiful
Australian
human
sport,
being.
the great Johnny Lewis.
Beautiful human being. Shout out to Johnny, whoever's
Absolutely.
listening and knows him, and he's a great rugby league man as well. Now let's chat about Payne Haas. Hasn't pledged his allegiance to Samoa. Has said that he's thinking about it and he'll make a decision after Origin. He's played 14 games for the Blues, 4 tests for the Kangaroos. I've got to say, one of the, just purely from my perspective, watching a rugby league play, he makes me watch rugby league, and not many people would say that about a front rower, but he's in the top 3 best front rowers I've ever seen while I'm alive. Now, this possible pledge of allegiance of Samoa. Thoughts?
I got to say, I'm pretty firm in my opinions when it comes to rugby league. I'm pretty torn on this one because I want to see...
I am also, yeah.
I want to see the sanctity of Origin look preserved.
Yep.
Preserved. I wanted to see.
Do you
preserved.
still hold Origin in your mind as a general? Do you still hold that as a Kangaroos Australian sort of selection process?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't. Not what it used to be. And
hasn't been that for a while.
People keep saying that that's what Origin was all about. It was never about becoming an Australian selection match or series. It was because they used to have a mid-year test.
They did, yeah.
The whole reason why Origin was brought in so Queenslanders could actually play for their state of origin.
Yeah.
Because they were all coming and playing for cashed up leagues clubs down here who were propped up by leagues clubs because of the difference between the two states in poker machine laws. That's why
the Origin jersey was the reward, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what it was. So it wasn't brought in to be a selection trial for Australian selection. That's what it used to be. But that's changed, and just as the rules changed in 1980 around Origin, I think they should have to change around how the game is reflected now. That said, though, I'm not entirely comfortable with it being a free-for-all, where whoever plays in the NRL should be allowed to play in Origin. On the other side of it is, I also think that international football is the one competitive advantage that rugby league has over its biggest competitor, which is AFL. And that is a part of the game that Peter V'landys and Andrew Abdo and the Commission are very keen to push. So I have no problem with Payne Haas going and playing for Samoa. I do think there should be a rule changed, though, where he has played 4 matches for Kangaroos.
Yes.
I don't like the idea of him chopping and changing allegiances to both countries. And I think if you and I'm not saying this is the case for Payne now, but I think moving forward, that if you play for, you play for Australia, you play for Australia your whole career. You play for Samoa, you play for Samoa your whole career. And I know that's not going to be a solution to any. I just think to the problem, but we're in a very different. Rugby league's so unique, Sats.
We didn't have as many Pacifica players that we had.
That's right.
In years gone
and
by.
that's the part of the world that we live in.
Yeah, so we've got to change with it.
That's what this game is, and we should be able to honour those players, but also understand that Origin is about New South Wales versus Queensland.
I thought Brandon Smith summed it up really well. He said, he's got 3 loves. He talked about Tino, for example. He's got 3 loves. Born in Gympie, raised in Queensland, schooling and junior footy in Queensland, loves playing for Queensland. Also loves playing for Australia because that's the country that actually helped him develop and gave him the opportunity. And then when he gets the chance to celebrate his heritage, his grandparents, whatever it may be, same as Payne, he should be given that option. I believe that if you're born, raised and developed in Australia, Mal has first dibs at you as a player. If Australia isn't playing a test match, I think, and Samoa is, first Tonga or Papua New Guinea, probably should have the opportunity to represent your heritage. So
we don't really have. We've got some solutions.
We've got some solutions, not all of them. Hey, let's get to the news now. Mark Potsy Braybrook is going to give that to you as we speak. Thank you, Mark Braybrook there with the news. This is a Saturday League kickoff. All thanks to Wing House, the best seats and beers, always guaranteed. Scott Sattler and Andrew Webster here with you for another Saturday as we head into the back end of, the middle of round 5, I should say, and what a great start it was. Before we do that, I want to talk about the Western Bears bid. Now, we saw a... Well, we've got the...
sort of.
I'm not going to say the 18th team. The NRL are not saying the 18th team. They're saying the next team into the competition for 2028 is PNG, whatever, whether they're called the Hunters, like their Queensland Cup team. I don't mind it. I like it.
The Hunters?
PNG Hunters.
Oh, the PNG Hunters.
Yeah.
No, I like it. I
think they're the Vipers there at one stage.
The Vipers?
The Vipers. So it's got to be about mascot.
I like the Hunters.
So the Gold Coast Titans.
That's what the
Queensland Cup team is. Yeah. When we were coming into the comp, I think the Titans were the 3rd or 4th favourite name. But then when they put it to a marketing team, and I was part of that bid team, when they put it to a marketing team, they said when you look at logos and mascots, it's hard. The best one is a Titan from a logo.
What were the 3 before it?
There was Gold Coast Stingers. There was Gold Coast United before the soccer team, like Manchester United, unite the community.
United, I like it.
There was Gold Coast Dolphins, but then we dropped that because of the Redcliffe Dolphins. And
the Gold Coast Meter Maids?
Gold Coast Meter Maids.
They don't have Meter Maids up there on the Goldie anymore, do they?
I think they are.
Do they?
I think they still do.
Fantastic.
Yeah, funded by the Gold Coast Council. So the Western Bears bid. Now during the week there was a inverted commas leaked jersey for the Western Bears on the back of this news coming out 2 days later that the Western Bears bid is, in your words, in hibernation.
In hibernation, yeah. It's not
what's going on?
Well, I don't know. So this, I really don't know.
Is there 3 consortiums over there?
There is, but there's the main issue is that Peter V'landys wants to do the deal with the WA government.
Yep.
And it became an election issue for the sitting Premier, who was re-elected recently, right in the middle of it, because the ARL Commission want government funding to the tune of about $300 million. And when that came out publicly, that caused all sorts of issues for the Labor government over there. So whether... and there's a lot of harsh words spoken between Peter Cook and Peter V'landys publicly. I feel like for all the good that Peter V'landys has done, he's been probably a little bit too aggressive with this one. My personal opinion is I don't think, and this is with great respect to the fans of North Sydney, and I still think that I'd love to see them reborn in another way, but I don't think Perth is the team that should come into the competition next. I have issues with it.
I tend to agree.
I have issues normally, but just issues with that one too.
In the modern game with travel, soft tissue injuries, HIA protocols now. So if you've got a player that's from the Western Bears, for example, playing over in the eastern seaboard, and then they're having to travel back with HIA protocols upon them as well, and soft tissue injuries. I know the AFL do it. I get it, but we're not used to that. We're not used to that cycle yet. I think it would take there'd be a lot of teething problems. I do agree with you that I love the idea of the Bears being rebirthed. I was part of the Western Corridor bid for the 17th team the Dolphins got. I still think to this day it was probably the wrong decision based on demographics and juniors. And
what Redcliffe was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the Firehawks would have been a great crosstown rivalry between the Brisbane Broncos and the Firehawks through the East Tigers Leagues Club there. But that Western Corridor, I want you to imagine Sydney and take Penrith and Parramatta out. Take them out of the comp. What are all those kids and all that building demographic do who are going west of the CBD for affordable housing, whatever it may be?
All the way to Ipswich?
And all the way to Ipswich and up into Toowoomba, which is like going Parramatta, Penrith, Blue Mountains, Bathurst, all those areas. So when you imagine Sydney without that, what would our game look like? Well, the AFL would have identified that. Now, the NRL, I know internally, have grave fears for the Western Corridor of Brisbane for rugby league. They've said it to me at Redfern Oval one day, that the AFL is building a really big platform in the Western Corridor. But what they're also apprehensive about doing, the NRL, is encroaching on areas where current rugby league fans come from. So a lot of the membership bases of the Brisbane Broncos come west of Brisbane. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You've got a building demographic, a huge junior nursery. This is where I think the Bears and the Western Corridor, the consortium, who still meet regularly, I think they could get together and do a deal about a Western Corridor team and calling it the Western Bears.
I could not agree with you more. The AFL are so aggressive in that Western Corridor of Brisbane that you're talking about, or southeast Queensland. I think... So they've got the AFL have, and the Lions have a facility at Springfield, isn't it?
Huge. It's like a satellite city.
So Queensland, Queensland AFL have 80 full-time staff. 80 full-time staff. The NRL wouldn't have that many. They've got that just in Queensland. And I know, the Firehawks, which I don't think is a particularly great name for a franchise, but you're right. That's where they should have got. That should have been the next. They should have been the franchise, not Redcliffe. And I say that with great respect to the people of Redcliffe.
They've done a great job
because what they've done,
an amazing job.
And look, they're here to stay, and we're lucky to have them in there in the competition. But if the NRL. And Peter V'landys, again, don't want to keep saying his name, likes to pick a fight with the AFL and the job that they do, and we will always own Queensland. They are cashed up and they are well resourced and they are prepared to play a long game. And they're doing it in the west of Sydney, and whether that works or not, they'll stay there for another 50 years. There's no way they're going to pull out. But the west of Brisbane is the new battleground. That's why I just think going to Perth, where there is two very well-established AFL teams, is just a waste of time.
Yep. So Terry Reader has done an amazing job with the Dolphins in those first few years. An amazing job. And I think it's now time that they need to sort of, I think, reignite that Western Corridor option. I wouldn't have it I'd have it based in Ipswich. Because the AFL, like you're saying, they're standing there now. They've got their gloves on. They're waiting for someone to turn up for the fight, but no one's turning up.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah. So
it's true.
If you base it in Ipswich, with the Olympics coming, Ipswich also needs a chaos-like stadium that the Dolphins have currently, which sits anywhere from sort of 13 to 17,000 people. Growing sports out there, multi-purpose facility.
But
it's perfect timing.
But so I know for a fact that this issue was raised by club CEOs when there was debate about the 17th team, whether it was Redcliffe or a team in the western suburbs of Brisbane, and the NRL were very dismissive of it. They wouldn't listen to it for that reason, because it would encroach on the Broncos' territory in terms of fans and in terms of juniors.
Yep.
But Brisbane, I think it's the third quickest growing area in the country. So, rugby league should own it before the AFL get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or get even more than what it has now.
And who won the premiership last year in the AFL? Brisbane Lions.
That's right.
Who won it the year before in the women's? Brisbane Lions. Exactly. So
there you go.
Hey, let's
Any
get
other problems we need to solve for the game?
Yeah,
Who do we
0457
invoice for that one?
736 or give us a call 1300 01 1170. Let's look at the Saturday games before we get to the break. Webby, we've got 2 p.m. That is Eastern Daylight Time. 3 p.m. Sydney time. 2 p.m. Queensland time is Combank. Is that the other way around? Yeah, I think. Yeah, 2 p.m. Queensland time. Combank Stadium. Eels versus Dragons. Gutho returns to Combank.
He does return to Combank as a Dragon.
Zach Lomax
returns as a Parramatta Eel.
Yep.
Look, as a Dragons man, I am still basking in the absolute glory of that never-in-doubt victory over the Storm.
They were tough last week.
They were. Poor old Flano. He was doing it tough on the sideline there in the last 20 minutes. I think I doubted that the Dragons could win that game on this show last Saturday, and then they made fools of me the way that they managed to hang in there. They did their best not to win it, I know that, but their defence and particularly some of the very, only a player of Gutho's experience and maturity could do some of the stuff that he did there late in the game. But it was. Yeah, it was pretty special from
you know Shane Flanagan better than I do, and you have had a lot to do with him as a journo. I don't have a lot to do with Shane Flanagan. I've only met him a couple of occasions, and but if there is ever a coach to keep his players grounded after a big win like that, because you can bask in the glory for 2 or 3 days, and you forget about what's ahead, and you continue to think about what's just happened, and all of a sudden it's Tuesday. You're in the week of training. If there's any coach I think that would keep their feet on the ground, I think it's Shane Flanagan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I reckon this is the problem with Flano in some respects. He's such an old school, hard taskmaster, which in many ways is what the Dragons needed after Anthony Griffin, and in some ways not, because it's not going to be for everybody. But that was just a really gritty win. My only issue is whether they can get up again against Parramatta at Combank this afternoon.
Haven't won yet, Parramatta. What are they? 4 games winless, and Dylan Walker's first game for the Eels. He's a good signing, Dylan Walker. Now the Titans versus the Dolphins, 5:30 New South Wales time, 4:30 Queensland time. Seabus Super Stadium. I'm going to this game this afternoon if I get on my plane in time. They're winless in their first 4 games as well. The Dolphins, on paper, people know my thoughts of them. I think they're one of the most impressive teams on paper when everyone is fit. They're looking for their 3rd straight win, the Titans. Of course, they had a bye in round 1, back-to-back wins.
They should win this game.
They should.
They have been up the last couple of weeks. They've been playing some bloody great football to watch. Big Tino, he's starting to look in ominous form for Queensland.
Yeah.
At some point, and possibly Australia.
We interviewed AJ.
If he wants to play for Australia.
We interviewed AJ Brimson during the week on Sports Day, and I spoke to him about that. I said, "Did you notice as a playing group that as you got closer to Tino playing his first game, did his levels of intensity rise at training?" He said it was noticeable to everyone. He just knew that he was so close to getting back on the field, and at some stages the coaches had to temper him back a little bit because he was beating up his teammates. Like he was really aggressive in his
preparation.
He's
the last bloke I'd want to be scrimmaging with Big Tino.
Former junior Kiwis rep Sean Mullaney, he's on debut for the Titans. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say I was going to switch to the Dolphins.
Yep.
They need to produce.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a tough start to the year. I thought they were quite good in the first sort of 10 to 15 minutes last week, but just end up falling away. Like they're it's Christian Wolf. It's a tough initiation.
There's a few calls up north of the border for Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow to go to the centres and Jake Avrillo to go to fullback. I'd be apprehensive about doing that. I want Hammer to be able to rove around the field. I don't want him locked into a position. A lot of people say he doesn't have to be locked in, but you'd preferably like to have your key players in their positions where you want to give them the ball. So I would be apprehensive about moving Hammer.
Where do you think they're lacking?
I don't know. I can't.
Because they're not the worst team on paper.
On paper, look at their back row. It's Fini Fuuaki and Lemu Elu. You got young Maxi Plath. You got Daniel Saifidi. Jeremy Marshall-King's a very good hooker. You got Felice Kaufusi, who's a tremendous, mature and veteran front rower. You've got Tommy Gilbert, of course, when he's playing. He's not there this week. It's an amazing team on paper. Then you've got one of the most exciting halves in the comp in Isaia Katoa, who if I was starting a new club, he'd be one of the first guys I'd go after. You've got Cody Nikorima who can ask questions. You've got 2 strike centres. You've got a strike fullback. You've got a try-scoring winger in 3-metre Peter.
They've got
Jack Bostock.
They've got a bit of they do feel like a team that's got a Bennett hangover. You know what I mean? Wayne I don't want to keep talking about Bennett, but his ability to squeeze the best out of, unfashionable players.
I think when you're under Wayne, your values are on point the whole time. Whatever that may be. Little extras, whatever you do. When whoever takes over, I think sometimes they like to change a little bit what Wayne did, but also the values drop a little bit as well. But I've got a lot of faith in Christian Wolf. He's an amazing guy, an amazing coach as well. He's got a long future in the NRL, and I think he'll actually turn them around.
Early days.
Yeah, Broncos versus West Tigers, 7:35 Sydney time, 6:35 Queensland time, Suncorp Stadium. West Tigers, well, basically they would have focused all on Payne Haas. Now, if you look at the stats of Payne Haas, if you keep him under 120 metres a game, you beat the Broncos. Now
that's an interesting stat.
Yeah, but the next thing that you've got to do is actually
do it. He's a colossus.
Broncos looking for the 3rd straight wing as well. Madge coming up against the Tigers. I think that's sort of. Oh no! It actually
that's a good storyline.
It always have a little bit of burning.
Only for Madge, not for the players. I couldn't care less.
Exactly.
It's they're 2 different clubs, but I'm sure there'll be something in Madge that will want him to get one over his old team.
Always is.
He needs another Doco, don't you reckon? Tales from Bronco Land.
Do you know what? I actually think he came out really well out of that. I think now moving forward, it proves, and again, a lot of people have heard me say this, it proves this guy works really well with elite athletes. If you've got part-minded professional rugby league players, it's not going to work.
Well, you're either all in with him or not.
Yeah.
And if you're a player that's not, he'll either, you'll either end up getting cranky with each other and he leaves, or he'll end up getting sacked.
He reminds me of Tim.
I felt sorry.
Reminds me of Tim Sheens. You're either all in as a rugby league historian. I remember standing in a pool in Foster. We were about to play a trial against Widnes at the start of the 2004 season. I was standing in a pool talking to Tim Sheens. I said, "Hey Sheensy, back in the 90s, you guys used to hold up a number from the sideline."
Right. And he got banned for it.
I said, "What was that all about?" 2 3/4 hours later, we spoke about everything. The history. My toes were wrinkled and pruned. My fingers, I couldn't feel anything from my waist down. So you got to be all in with guys like that.
I've had 2-hour phone calls with Tim Sheens.
He's great.
He loves the game.
I love him. Let's get to a break here on Saturday League kickoff, and we'll chat Sunday's Battle of Brookie, which has got one of the great rivalries. We had one of the rivalries last night with South and the Roosters. Another one this weekend with Manly hosting the Melbourne Storm. And this is all thanks to Wing House, the best seats and beers always guaranteed. This is Saturday League Kickoff. That's it for another 2 hours of Saturday League Kickoff, and we haven't left ourselves much time to talk about this rivalry, but Seagulls versus Storm. The Bulldogs 5 straight wins they're going for against the Knights. That's 6:15 at our core tomorrow, New South Wales time. But the Seagulls versus Storm, I think the rivalry started 2007 grand final. Mick Crocker took out Brett Stewart.
That's right.
And then it all started, then fast forward to 2011.
That's right. Well, the 08 grand final, and then the Battle of Brookvale, the Friday night game, there was so much build up to it.
Brett Stewart did his knee when he flew over the top of Brett and Adam Blair, didn't he?
And then they were having a... Do you know what I remember? You know what I remember?
Yeah.
I was covering it, and I remember going down to get something to eat just before kickoff, and the fans were in such a frenzy, and this guy got a hot dog, and he dropped it, and the Frankfurt fell out onto the ground. He picked it up, dusted off, put it in, took a bite of it, and then ran off. He's in like a...
That's what you remember about the Battle of Brookie.
Well, that's just like... That was the tension in the air. It was like a portent of the absolute... drama that was about to happen.
Suspensions everywhere, wasn't there, that game?
There was.
Yeah.
There was. It was a lot of fallout from it.
It's what we love. It's what we love about the game, but
we need a good judiciary again. We haven't had one for a while.
We need a good all-in brawl. That's what we need.
A brawl, judiciary.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm sick of contract brawls. I want an actual brawl.
No Turbo for a month. Nathan Brown starts at prop. Jerome Hughes listed among the reserves after that fractured hand he had surgery on. And what is it now? Manly have won 11 from the 13 games at Brookie since the start of last season. So, obviously, they love it. Hated playing there, but it's a great spectacle. Thank you very much, everyone, for all your input on Saturday League Kickoff. Myself, Scotty Sattler, Andrew Webster, and have a great weekend, Webby.
Yes.
And you listeners, have a great weekend also.
You too.
Crunch time coming up next.